the Gods of Asgard. After Odin, the best loved of the gods, at least by mortal man, was his son Thor, the red-haired, red-bearded god of the thunder and the lightning. Thor was the most powerful of the other gods, and was also referred to as the Thunderer, the Smiter, and the Defender of Asgard and Midgard. To help him fight the terrible enemies of Asgard, Thor possessed a number of magical items. Best known and most feared of these was his enchanted warhammer, Mjolnir, whose name means the Destroyer, with which he killed many of his foes. Mjolnir would always return to its owner when thrown, and was so heavy none but Thor could wield it. He could also use it to call forth thunder, lightning, and the tempest when the need arose. As well as being an invincible warrior, Thor was a great eater and entertainer. His castle was called Bilskirnir, or the Lightning, and was situated in a region of Asgard known as the Fields of Strength. It was the biggest in Asgard, with 540 rooms. He lived there with his beautiful wife, Sif, the goddess of the wheat fields. She was famed for her long, shining blonde hair, which was like spun gold. Their table groaned and creaked from the weight of food and drink that was piled on it for meals and banquets. Thor had an appetite every bit as voracious as he was impulsive, and thought nothing of eating a whole ox at a single sitting, and washing it down with 3 barrels of nectar-sweet mead. In reality, he was something of a glutton, but he was so brave and strong, everyone loved him, and did not care about how much he ate or drank. Next to Thor in strength was a mysterious and silent god named Vidar, whose task was to create a magical object named the Greatest Boot. This boot was to be made from the scraps of all the leather that all mortal cobblers threw away in making footwear for their clients. At the end of time, when the ship of death set sail and the giants attacked Asgard, Vidar will put on the Greatest Boot, and if the magic works, will use it to stamp out the life of one of the gods' deadliest enemies. Another of the gods who often went down to the world of men was Heimdall, but not much is known about his origins. Heimdall was the guardian of Asgard, and lived in a fort on Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge itself, protecting Asgard from all manner of dangers. Heimdall's senses were so keen that he could hear grass growing on Midgard, or a leaf falling to the earth in Jotunheim. On his shoulder hung the great Jalahorn, the trumpet that would sound the final alarm when the giants and the forces of evil began their attack on Asgard. Heimdall would be the first to face the forces of evil when Ragnarok dawned, and no finer sentinel existed in all the 9 worlds. Another important god was the war god Tyr, whose runes marked the swords and axes of mortal men. Tyr was the son of Odin, and, if anything, was even braver than Thor, but not quite so powerful as his brother. Tyr would have to make a great sacrifice for the good of Asgard before the coming of Ragnarok. Baldur, the son of Odin, was Thor's brother, and was known as the White God, or the Shining One, or the Beautiful, and was loved by all the gods but one, the evil Loki. Baldur was loved by all things in creation, and because of a prophecy that he would one day be slain by treachery, Frigg, who was the mother of everything in nature, made all things swear that they would never harm her beloved son, so that he should not die by fire, stone, metal, wood, or water. Even so, it would come to pass that Baldur would die at the hand of his brother, the blind god Hodur, and this event would presage the coming of Ragnarok. The god who was really responsible for the coming of Ragnarok more than any other was not innocent blind Hodur, but the god who, as we shall see, duped him into killing his brother Baldur, the god of mischief and evil, Loki. Though physically beautiful and possessing a beguiling charm, right from the beginning, Loki was a troublesome spirit with a nasty, mean, spiteful streak that led him, and eventually all Asgard, into serious trouble. Odin, it has to be said, found Loki's cunning and twisted evil way of thinking quite attractive in many ways, and played with him, much as children play with matches, not quite realizing the true danger until they get burned. Thinking that it could be to Asgard's benefit to bring Loki into the fold and turn him away from his evil ways, Odin made him his blood brother by cutting their wrists and letting their blood mingle. But ultimately it was to be of no avail. Loki would be known as the tainted god, the bad companion, and the thief of Sif's hair, among other despicable things, before he eventually brought doom upon them all. Loki's offspring, as much as he himself, were to be the bane and scourge of Asgard. Although the god of mischief had a beautiful, loving wife in Asgard named Sigyn, he also had 3 children to an ogress in Jotunheim named Angrboda. Angrboda, like her lover, was a mixture of beauty and evil. Their first daughter was called Gerda, and she was a beauty without compare in the 9 worlds, and she would play an important part in the discord that was to come. The second child of Loki and Angrboda was a wolf, and they called him Fenrir. As the wolf cub was a child of Loki, the gods let him play in the forests of Asgard, little realizing the danger they were allowing into their homeland, and how dear their kindness would cost them, and Tyr, the god of war, in particular. Loki and Angrboda's third child was a monstrous serpent called Yamaganda, who grew so big that in no time he surrounded the whole of Midgard. Odin, in order to prevent the monster getting any bigger, put the serpent's tail in its mouth and threw it in the sea, where it endlessly twists and coils, creating the waves and the tides. Jormungandr is also known as the Midgard serpent, and is the sworn enemy of Thor, with whom it would clash on more than one occasion. The fourth child of the terrible pair was a girl, and Odin hurled her into the underworld, fearing what a terrible monster she might grow into. She fell from the towering black granite cliffs of Asgard for 7 days and 7 nights, and landed in a dark and gloomy place called Hell. Because of the magical powers inherited from her parents, she grew into the queen of that land, and took its name for her own, Hela. The entrance to Hell is a huge, gaping black hole called Nippalir, which means the cave in the cliff, and from its dark mouth blow icy winds and blinding sheets of snow. The entrance is guarded by a terrible hound called Garm, who is so savage he has to be chained in place to prevent him charging out into the 9 worlds and attacking all who live there. The denizens of Hell include those mortal men who have murdered, betrayed, or broken their word in life, and their punishment is eternal. There is an island in Hell called Narstrand, or the Shore of the Dead, that the light of day never reaches. It has only one building, a huge torture chamber. The building is made from poisonous living serpents, and those who enter are endlessly punished for their sinful lives. Burning venom drips on the evildoers, whose bodies are already a mass of open cuts and wounds from having had to cross the dread river Slid, which is filled not with water, but razor-sharp swords and knives, and the serpents bite at them interminably, allowing them no respite or comfort. The eternally living dead of Hell, when they are not being tortured, are put to work building the terrible longship of the goddess of death. When the ship is finished, Its captain will be the great traitor, the evil one, who betrayed his friends and loved ones, wicked Loki, and it will sail against Odin and Asgard when the time of Ragnarok comes around.